So let us start our session with a few moments of complete silence, just to settle down a little bit. And then we will pronounce Om 3 times together, and the prayer to sage Patanjali, one of the greatest masters of yoga of all times. And we will pay our respect to him, as he is for us a representation of the great yogic masters that lived before him and also lived after him, including our own masters, Swami Omkarananda and Guruji B.K.S. Iyengar, as a representation of everyone. So let us settle down for a few moments in silence. Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakaruttam pravaram muninam Patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi abahu Purushakaram Shankhachakrasidharinam Sahasra Shirasam Shvetam Pranamami Patanjalim Harihi Om. So today, one of the best known Sanskrit words. And I believe it is a word which has made its way today in most of the dictionaries of all languages around the world. That is the word yoga. It is a very well-known word, and yet sometimes when it comes to its meaning, what it means, what it really means, the word, there seems to be so much confusion. Yes, we all know that yoga means union. Whenever the question is asked, what does yoga mean, then it is said union. But how does union relate to what we do, specifically the asana practice, which has today become synonymous to the word yoga? The moment we hear the word yoga, we think of asanas. How is the word related to asana, and what are its various meanings? This is what I want to discuss a little bit today. Let me take you on a journey through the meanings of the word yoga, the masters of this country, the ancient masters, have used the word. Not only just simply in the sense of union, but they have used it in so many beautiful meanings. So let us have a look at those meanings. First of all, of course, the root is yuj, from which the word yoga has been derived, and therefore it means union, it means coming together. That is the very literal grammatical significance of the word. And I think equivalent terms in English language to yoga, which are very similar in their pronunciation, have the same meaning, are words like yoke, Y-O-K-A, yoke, and then conjugate, or join, conjunct. These words, they are linguistically related to the word yoga. Also, just to say a few words about pronunciation, when yoga went to the West, Y-O-G-A, everybody started pronouncing it as yoga. They thought that the A in the end is long. Then everybody started pronouncing it in the West, yoga. When it came to India, back from the West, Indians also started pronouncing it as yoga. Even Hindi-speaking people sometimes, hum yoga karne ja rahe hain, we are going to do yoga. Then somebody thought we have to be correct, we have to be proper. Then came the other extreme, which is what you see here. On one side you have yoga, on one side you have yog without an A. Somebody decided to get rid of the A and just pronounce it as yog, because that is how it is pronounced in Hindi language. In Hindi language, we never pronounce the ending A. Rama becomes Ram. Yoga becomes yog. Okay, fine, good for Hindi-speaking people. But coming to the rest of the world, which doesn't speak Hindi, should they follow the Hindi pronunciation or should they follow the original Sanskrit pronunciation? My feeling is that everybody, since it is a Sanskrit word, everybody should pronounce it the way it was pronounced in Sanskrit language. And since every letter in Sanskrit language has specific rules of how it has to be pronounced, the A at the end of the word has to be pronounced with a closed mouth. In Sanskrit we call it samvrita. Samvrita. A is vivrita, with an open mouth, and A is with a closed mouth. So the A has to be pronounced, but with a closed mouth. So the correct pronunciation of the word yoga is neither yoga with a long A with a and nor it is yog. It is good for Hindi speaking people, but not the proper Sanskrit pronunciation. The proper Sanskrit pronunciation is yoga. Yoga. The stress being on yo and then ga with a short A. Maybe we can just try. Let everybody together pronounce the word correctly. I will do it once and then you can follow me. Yoga. 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 So I hope from now onwards, everyone that is present here will not pronounce it as yoga, nor will they pronounce it as yog, unless they are speaking Hindi. They will be pronouncing it as yoga, with a short A at the end. Okay. Now, the various meanings in which the word yoga has been used. Usually we hear about union, about coming together, but let me start with the complete opposite of this meaning, which is separation. Separation, not union, but separation. And it is beautiful. There is a grammatical rule in Sanskrit language that most of the roots, they can be used in the meanings which they have, as well as the complete opposite meaning. And there are many grammatical examples. I'm not going into the technical detail, but no one else than Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 6th chapter, he defines yoga as viyoga. And viyoga is the opposite of yoga, which is separation. But separation from what? That's the question. Separation from what? We all are speaking about union, but the idea of separation is also present. Separation of what? The answer comes from Krishna. Tam vidyat dukkha sanyoga. Viyogam yoga sangitam. Everybody in this world, the moment we are born in suffering. We grow up, suffering is part of that. Yes, joy is also part of it. But suffering is a very important part of our birth, of our life, as well as old age. And this is not about being pessimistic. Buddha didn't become pessimistic when he saw these 4 types of suffering: janma, birth, mrityu, death, jara, old age, and vyadhi, sicknesses that come throughout the life. These 4 types of suffering. He did not become pessimistic. He found a way out. So yoga, by acknowledging that suffering, is a way out of that suffering on a physical level as well as on deeper levels identified by yoga. So everyone experiences this samyoga with dukkha, which means this union with suffering. Yoga is the disjunction, is the separation from that suffering. And really, if you look at the Yoga Sutras of sage Patanjali, it's the 2nd chapter is all about how to remove dukkha, how to remove suffering. Heyam dukkham anagatam. He said, okay, suffering which has passed, it has passed. We can't do anything. We can only work on unburdening ourselves from that suffering and their impressions. That is where yoga can help us. And then, the second thing, suffering in this moment, it is just happening now. What can be done? Nothing can be done about the suffering in this moment, but suffering which is about to come, that can be tackled and addressed through the path of yoga. So the spirit of the yogic masters from extreme antiquity, even before Patanjali, go back to the Bhagavad Gita, for example. Sri Krishna starts his discourse to Arjuna by showing him the path of overcoming grief. The first thing that he says, that wise people, Arjuna, don't grieve. That's how he, Nanu shochanti panditah, wise people don't grieve. The first thing that he starts his discourse with. And then at the end, the moment he finishes his discourse, he again says, Ma shuchaha, don't grieve. So the whole message of the Bhagavad Gita is the quintessence of the Bhagavad Gita, which is again, I'm just referring it to a well-known designation, Bhagavad Gita, because all of us have heard it. But a less known designation of that text is Yoga Shastra. It is a text on yoga. It contains instructions on yoga. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras are a little bit concise. Srimad Bhagavad Gita is a little bit more detailed, that's all. Again, it is all about overcoming grief and suffering in one's life. Then again, go back to the Upanishads. Tarati shokam atmavit. Someone who knows this deeper inner principle, he overcomes suffering. He overcomes grief. So this idea, the only thing that I want to show is that from extreme antiquity, in the teachings of yoga, we see this constant thread, which is a basic human need to overcome suffering through the light of wisdom. And that is what yoga is about. But to see how the meaning of this quintessential idea of yoga is present within the word yoga, we have to be reminded that the word yoga also means separation. Separation from suffering. That is the first meaning. Then, another meaning in which again the word yoga has been used from extreme antiquity. I think the most ancient text, collection of yogic teachings on the Indian subcontinent, is the Rig Veda. And when I searched through all the usages of the word yoga in that text, maximum times it was being used in this sense that I'm going to discuss. And it is a meaning which still exists today, even in Hindi-speaking people. They don't know the origin, but they still use it. So what does that meaning? Acquisition of something new. Something that we don't have. Simple meaning. Acquisition, Shankaracharya's explanation is apraptasya praptihi. Something that we don't have, to acquire that. Something new. To acquire something new. That's the meaning of the word yoga. And Krishna uses it in this together. Sometimes it is added together in this meaning. When it occurs in this particular meaning, it is added to another word, kshema. Kshema, which means to safeguard something that has already been acquired. And both together, yoga kshema is the Sanskrit word for complete well-being. And we use it in Hindi language as well. Aapka yoga kshema kaise chal raha hai? How is your yoga and kshema going on? So even in that meaning, the word still exists in Hindi language. So this acquisition of something new, that is the second meaning. And when we speak of acquisition of something new, we should not only think in terms of worldly wealth, but also because wisdom, knowledge, noble qualities, virtues, such as non-violence, truthfulness, the yamas and niyamas, all these virtues, they are referred to by the yogic masters as divine wealth. A person has to work to acquire it, and that's why it is a form of wealth. So, I think in this meaning, the word yoga inspires us to everyday work, to acquire something new. I think it was one of the great poets of ancient India, Mahakavi Magha, who said something very beautiful, that what does make something appealing? What is the definition of appealing? In Sanskrit we call it Ramaniya. I'm using these words because I'm seeing several Hindi-speaking people here also, so that I'm not speaking in Hindi right now, I'm speaking in English, but I'm trying to incorporate Hindi-based ideas as well, so that everybody can relate. मुझे क्षमा करिएगा क्योंकि आनंद मुझे हिंदी बोलने में ही ज़्यादा आता है, लेकिन सब लोगों की भावनाओं का ध्यान रखते हुए अंग्रेजी में बोल रहा हूँ. तो the point that I was trying to make is that that acquisition of something new in one's life, that is what makes one's life appealing. That is what makes one's life enjoyable. To acquire always something new, to be in search of something new. One of the great yogis of Rishikesh, whose name is widely forgotten, but once upon a time, he was, I think, one of the greatest personalities after Swami Vivekananda, who took yoga to the West. I don't know if we should remember the names of such great masters, visit their caves which are there around Rishikesh. That will help us to come back to the original spirit that this place was about. Swami Ramatirtha, who spent quite a while meditating in a cave close to Brahmapuri, used to come to Kailas Ashram to listen to yogic texts, to Vedantic texts. He writes in he has all his works, they are known as he mentions this beautiful episode when he was coming back from the United States. He sees a 90-year-old man on the ship trying to learn Chinese. Chinese, one of the most difficult languages in the world. And he said, "Sir, what is your age?" He said, "I'm 90 years old." "What are you doing?" "Learning Chinese." He said, "At this age, you are learning Chinese. What's the problem? Why do you think that only young people can learn? I should do something, whatever time is left, I should do something, learning something new." So he was inspired by this spirit. So this spirit of learning something new, acquiring something new, acquiring new skills, acquiring new information, I think this is again a spirit that underlies the yogic masters when they say that Ano Bhadra Kradavo Yantu Vishwataha, let everybody in Rishikesh pronounces these mantras, but sadly, without understanding their beautiful significance. Most of the people will remember this mantra, but what is its meaning? Ano Bhadra, let beautiful, auspicious, uplifting thoughts, inspirations come to us from all sides. So this receptivity to new, uplifting ideas, that is what lies at the core of yoga when we realize that another very important meaning of the word yoga is to acquire something new. Then, another context in which the word yoga was used by no one else than Maharshi Vamadeva. And I'm taking his name because yogic practitioners know Vamadevasana, the asana of Vamadeva. But what about his teachings? What about what he taught? The Rig Veda collects his teachings. And in one of the mantras, he uses the word yoga in a very specific meaning. He uses the word yoga in the sense of the coming together of all those who are otherwise widely dispersed. I'm amazed because today, and that is why we say that a rishi sees into all the three tenses. He could see this happening, what is happening today. And obviously what he is describing was describing something at his own time when he was describing this description that how men, human beings, variously dispersed on the face of earth, they come together for a single purpose. It is in this context that he uses the word yoga. So yoga, that is why yoga unites us in peace and in harmony. It brings us together for a common goal. And I, at the center, experience it every day when people from so many different countries, which are so they don't even understand properly each other's language. Sometimes so many linguistic issues are there, and that's why communication becomes problematic. But on the level of yoga, communication happens instantly, because there we start speaking from heart to heart, and not only from heart to heart, but from body to body, from breath to breath, from mind to mind. And that is why then we start to beautifully coexist. Then it doesn't matter whether in the same room there is someone from India or from Pakistan, from China, from Palestine, from Israel, from the Arabic countries. We just work together, try to learn from each other's experiences. Yoga does it in one small little center, and it is achieving the same in the whole world, as we see it happening today, as the idea of yoga went from these very Himalayan mountains into the entire world. That is when our hearts, because again, the most ancient collection of teachings, the Rig Veda, concludes with a beautiful hymn which speaks of concordance. The exact words that have been used there, samana hridayanivaha, let your hearts be equal, let your hearts be totally united. That is what concordance means. Yathavaha susaha asati, so that you can coexist peacefully, respecting each other, not one group trying to dominate someone else, but understanding each other, learning from each other, sharing with each other. That has been the spirit of yoga from its very conception, and that is why it lies at the very origin of that. So that meaning of yoga, in which everything is brought together, everyone is brought together. In that sense also, the word has been used. Another meaning, I think, and this is one of the first definitions given to the word yoga in India, because if one presses back to the ancient texts and tries to find a definition of the word yoga, of course we have the famous definition by sage Patanjali, yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. Everybody quotes it. I'm not even going to talk about it because everybody knows it, that yoga is the cessation of the modifications of the mind. His definition produced. But there are also definitions of the word yoga before that. We find definitions of yoga in, for example, in Kathopanishad, which defines yoga as the settling down of the senses, the intellect, the mind. That is how Kathopanishad, again, very similar definition, not very different in a sense. But there is another beautiful definition which was given by Maharshi Apastamba, one of the earlier masters of yoga before sage Patanjali. And his definition I like very much because it is very simple. It is simply to lead one's life in such a way so that there is no opposition towards anyone. Sarva bhutaihi avirodho yoga. That's his definition. Simple, beautiful. To lead one's life in such a way so that there is no virodha, there is no opposition towards any being. This is not easy to achieve. It is a continuous process. A person, precisely through the practical path of yoga, through the eight-limbed path of yoga, masters the technique, garners the strength to achieve that, fails again and again like a child in doing it. That's how we learn. Also, as a simple thing as asana, we fail so many times at it. We have to fail at an asana 1,000 times to be able to perfect it. Isn't that every asana practitioner's experience? The kind of perfect asana that our teachers speak about, that someone like Guruji B.K. Iyengar, who tried to bring perfection into every asana, achieved. A person has to fail 1,000 times to acquire perfection in that. The same thing is true, but at least everybody walking on that path is attempting. That's why the spirit that a yogi needs to have is the spirit of that small little child. All of us were that small little child. How many times we stood up, we fell down, not 1,000 times, maybe 10,000 times, when we were trying to learn to walk. We bruised our knees, and yet we stood up again because that desire to stand up like everyone else was inherently there within us. And that's why again and again we attempted to stand up. The same thing has to be the spirit of yoga. So to lead one's life in such a way, that is a yogic life. When we speak of a yogic life, this is what a yogic life looks like. Try, and Patanjali speaks about it. One of the first things that he speaks on the eight-limbed path of yoga is ahimsa, non-violence. And then what he says? That when someone masters non-violence, not only does he give up thoughts of enmity, he doesn't stop there. Patanjali doesn't stop there. That when a person is established in non-violence, in the principle of non-violence, in the first yama, he doesn't only eradicate thoughts of enmity towards anyone, but even those who harbor thoughts of enmity, they give them up as they come in the presence of such a yogi. That is the sign of a perfect yogi, someone who has leading his life, a yogic life, what we see as a yogic life, what Patanjali sees as a yogic life. So that's why this definition by sage Apastamba is of tremendous importance. It is his definition, one of the greatest sages' definition. And I think it is this spirit behind the word yoga which has always united. Often people, particularly I hear that here in India, Indians, they love to glorify their traditions, stating that we know how to coexist, how to peacefully coexist, because we have coexisted for centuries. Despite our linguistic differences, despite our cultural differences, despite our distinct religious traditions, we have always peacefully coexisted. Zoroastrians, Persians were welcomed 1200 years ago to India. There are so many instances when other religions were persecuted in their own countries. They were welcomed in India, and ever since they have lived peacefully in India. It has a beautiful history. But where is the root? Where is the root of that? Let us ask someone of great authority who was the founding fathers of a great empire in South India, Vijayanagar Empire. If anyone of you has visited the ruins of Vijayanagar in South India, you will see how magnificent that empire would have been at some point. And one of the masterminds who created this empire in South India, he was a Swamin. He was a great teacher of Vedanta. And in his teachings, he says something very beautiful about yoga. He says that, you see, when it comes to the philosophical positions, beliefs and philosophical positions, then whether it is the Buddhists, whether it is the Jainas, whether it is those who worship Shiva, those who worship Vishnu, those who worship the Divine Mother, all these distinct traditions, they speak of distinct things. They speak of separate things. But when it comes to the practical aspect of yoga, then isn't it that even the Buddha is sitting in the same Padmasana in which all the Vedic rishis are sitting? Isn't it that Mahavira, Parshvanatha, Rishabhanatha, all these great masters of the Jaina tradition are sitting in the same asanas, in the same meditative postures? So he beautifully points this out, that when it comes to the fundamental practical aspect of yoga, that is where all these different distinct traditions, they are united. And that's why he says that someone who has mastered the path of yoga, he becomes respected by all these different traditions. Then he has no sense of enmity, prejudice towards any one of these traditions, because he has gone to the very foundation, to the very fundamental essence. So if we are united, then we are united because of the union of yoga. The masters, again and again, whether it is the yogic masters of the Vedic traditions, whether it is, for example, the yogic masters of the Buddhist Yogacara tradition, where again the word yoga lies, it is a distinct tradition within Buddhism itself, where again the idea of yoga is central, or whether one looks at the great works of yoga composed by the Jaina masters, there also, even the Jaina masters, they start by saying that whatever we are describing when it comes to yoga, we are describing exactly the same thing like the others' teachings. So really, when it comes to the foundational, practical aspect of yoga, we see beautifully how these distinct traditions, I will call them traditions, today people call them religions, they become beautifully united in the word yoga itself, the same word yoga, and they revolve and evolve around this concept of yoga. That is how central the word yoga is to these three distinct traditions. Why? From where does this spirit of yoga come? It comes again, it goes back to the very founding fathers when they say that yes, the truth is one. Ekam Sat. The truth is one. But that is what everybody accepts, that the truth is one. Everybody claims that the truth is one. But then the problem comes, my truth is the only correct truth. People go into that direction. The yogic masters go into another direction. They say, yes, the truth is one, but it can be expressed by the wise in various ways. Ekam Sat, the truth is one, but Vipraha Bahudha Vadanti. Vipraha, which means the wise men can express it through various ways. And it was again this spirit when the yogic masters always saw that while at the foundation we are united, it doesn't matter if we branch off into different directions. That doesn't matter. That shouldn't be the reason of discord amongst us, because at the very source we are deeply united. And again they were digging deep back to that source. That is what I call the philosophy of yoga. People speak about the philosophy of yoga. What is that philosophy of yoga? The philosophy of yoga is to learn not to be illusioned by all these diversities and going back to the very roots, to the very foundations, and seeing how ultimately every stream of thought is deeply interconnected. And then ultimately, what we apply in yoga itself has to be applied on the level of this world by seeing that how deep within ourselves we are deeply connected. So this idea of yoga, from where? Again, let us proceed a little bit further and see from where does this idea of yoga come. Another definition that Krishna gives to the word yoga, which is also my very favorite definition in the 2nd chapter, he speaks of samatvam yoga uchyate. Yoga is to be sama. Sama. Sama in English is the same as same. To be same. The English word same is closely related to the Sanskrit word sama. To be same. And what does that mean? To be the same towards others, as well as to remain the same in the different circumstances of one's life. There are these two types of samenesses, if I can use that word, two types of samenesses. In one, we are the same towards all, and in one, we are the same towards all the good and bad circumstances. That is again something that is deeply related to yoga. For example, the most beautiful example that the masters give is of the sun. Can you relate this with this idea? The sun remains the same, unlike the moon. It shines its light equally on all. It doesn't favor anyone. It shines its light equally on all nations, on all people, on all beings. Its light is accessible from a human being to a tiny little ant or lizard. To everyone it bestows its light with complete equality. So that is one type of sama, sameness, that we can learn from the sun. And then the second type of sama of the sun that the yogic masters have identified is that it remains the same every day, unlike the moon, which waxes and wanes. Sometimes it is completely absent, sometimes there is little light, sometimes there is a lot of light. But the sun always shines. So again, the practice of yoga is such that it gives us that strength, that inspiration to continue to shine the way the sun shines every day. So like this, also the idea of balance is there in the word sama. In fact, one of the three defining features of Iyengar yoga, Guruji's approach, he didn't like the word himself, but Guruji's approach to yoga is perfect alignment. The other two are sequence and props. These are the three defining features of Iyengar yoga, what our center has been presenting here through Mataji in all these 7 days, every day. So one of the defining features, alignment, for which we use the word alignment in English. From where did Guruji get the idea of alignment? From where did he get it? When he came for the second time to the center, he gave a beautiful discourse on how to be a sadhaka, how to be an ardent practitioner. This was his last visit to Rishikesh in 2011, on the 3rd of January. And there he said something very beautiful. He must have said it so many times, but it came to my notice when he said it on that day. He said that who gave me the plumb line for this idea of alignment, which I brought into every posture? He said it was Krishna. In the 6th chapter, when he says, samam kaya shiro grivam, to sit in a posture in which kaya, the body, shira, the head, and griva, the neck, they are all the three in a straight line. They are completely sama, balanced in a straight line. They will only be balanced when they are in a straight line. Otherwise, they cannot be balanced. So, alignment is deeply related to the idea of sama, to the idea of balance. One cannot balance properly till there is, particularly in the balancing postures, balance is all about alignment. Where did Krishna get the idea? The Bhagavad Gita is just the essence of the Upanishads. Go back to the Upanishads, you find exactly the same idea in Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Trunnatam sthapya samam shariram. There also the word sama, same, has been used. In all the three places, the body has to be erect and sama, aligned, balanced. So the word sama, the word yoga, the word sama also means balance. Balance which we bring into our physical body in the form of alignment through yogic practices. And then of course, as a person goes deeper, then it's not only about aligning the physical body, but it is about aligning the breath as well as ultimately aligning the mind, making it completely balanced. So like this, a person can go deeper and deeper into the meanings of the word yoga. This is just, I've just discussed a few of them, maybe 5 or 6. But like this, a person can go deeper. And it is only at the end that high meaning, the sense of what Patanjali is trying to convey, yogaschitta vritti nirodha, yoga is the cessation of the modifications of the mind. It has to be seen in the entire context. It is then that we can truly appreciate the beauty of what he is trying to say when he says that yoga is the cessation of the modifications of the mind. Before that, everybody just continues to quote it, just as a method of paying respect to sage Patanjali by quoting one of the first 2 or 3 sutras Because those are the ones that are most accessible, that you see for the first time when you open the book. Better than nothing, but they maybe don't realize that the great yogic masters always start describing yoga from their own level, and it is only after several discourses that they come down to the level of the student. We see this in the Yoga Sutras, we see this in the Bhagavad Gita. Shri Krishna starts from a very high level and then gradually comes down to the level to his listener and then takes him back to his own level. It's like a mala, starting from what is do you know what this bead, this bead is called? It is called Sumeru. Sumeru, which is the highest mountain. The mala starts from there and then ends there. That is how the malas of the yogic texts, such as the Yoga Sutras, work. And that's why Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha is one of the most advanced definitions of yoga. There come many more definitions which have to be discussed and understood to appreciate the meaning of that definition. But let us leave it here today. This should suffice for a place like this. And let us just imbibe whatever I have spoken of, and let us find our own path by attempting to imbibe these definitions of yoga into our life, because it is only then that our asana practice will become truly yoga. Before that, I don't know how can it be called even yoga. The correct word, the correct Sanskrit word, otherwise should be vyayama. Vyayama means specific, special, ayama, stretching. Let it be that, let it be that. There is a word in Sanskrit. Sanskrit has hundreds of words for every single thing. So refer to it as vyayama, as stretching of the body. If we are referring to it as yoga, then something deeper related to yoga has to be incorporated into our practice. Even, can you believe, one of the commentators, while traditional Sanskrit commentators, commenting on the sutras of pranayama, what he says, that pranayama is yoga only as long as total awareness is attached to the breath. That is when pranayama becomes yoga. Otherwise it is pranayama but not yoga. Apply the same rule to asana. Apply the same rule to the practice of asana. As long as full attention is there, full awareness is there, a person is practicing with complete awareness, with understanding, till then it becomes yoga. Otherwise, it is not even asana, because again the definition of asana, to sit. But what? To sit where? There are so many standing postures. Why do we call trikonasana an asana? Why is shirshasana an asana? We are standing on our head. Why? Asana means a sitting posture. Asana is called asana because it enables us to sit within ourselves. The posture can be used as an instrument to enter within oneself. That is the definition that the 10th century yogic masters, one of the founding masters of Hatha Yoga tradition, Guru Gorakshanatha, when he gives this definition of asana, asanamiti swaswarupe samasannata, to be seated within oneself. Even we cannot refer to it asana if that goal is not there. Then we just have to refer to it as vyayama, a stretching of the body. It cannot be asana, it cannot be yoga. To make it asana, to make it yoga, something has to be put into it. Like salt has to be added to food and sugar has to be added to our drinks. In the same way, something for it to be a sweet, Sugar has to be added. Otherwise, it's everything but not as sweet. For something to be a namkeen, namak has to be added. Salt has to be added. Otherwise, it is not namkeen. A salty food. Similarly, for vyayama to become asana and yoga, something has to be added. And that has to be understood. That has to be contemplated. So with this, I will conclude my today's talk, thanking the organizers here for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. I always see it as a great honor because it reminds me of when I was 16 years old and when I attended the first international yoga fest. First time I attended an international yoga festival in Rishikesh. Guruji was present, Gitaji was present. I was asked to recite some of the mantras from the Veda, the Purusha Sukta. Simple recitation. I did it, and it reminds me of that time of my childhood when I saw Guruji, and by Guruji I always mean B.K. Sayenga, and his daughter Gitaji, who have been two of the defining personalities of modern yoga in modern times. So that was when I met them for the first time and could be in their presence and was part of the International Yoga Festival hosted at Hotel Ganga Kinare out of Rishikesh, a rather more peaceful setting back then. And so I pay my respect to all those great teachers and masters. Let us conclude this discourse with, again, just a very brief few moments of silence to imbibe and to retain what we have heard. And then we'll conclude with a prayer for universal well-being. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. Thank you very much. Some questions. Okay. Okay. Please. Okay, so the question is that what is chitta? What is chitta? There are two words related, chit and chitta. Do I have everybody's attention? Particularly of the one who has asked the question? there are two words, chit and chitta. Two words. So let us try to understand the meaning of both. Chit means consciousness, and chitta is that of which we are conscious, which means the object of consciousness. So awareness is chit, and chitta is whatever we are aware of. So whatever presents itself in our mind, a thought, an emotion, a feeling, a picture, whatever arises within the mind, that is referred to as chitta. We can translate it into English language as mind content, the content of the mind. And the witness, the one to whom the content is being presented, that consciousness which is witnessing because consciousness remains always there. The content doesn't. Content changes. Now all this is presenting itself as a content into my mind. If I sit down, then memories come up, they become the content. Pictures come up, emotions come up, they become the content. So chitta is constantly flowing. And that's why Vyasa in his commentary, he refers to chitta sometimes as a river. Chitta nadi. Nama hyubhayato vahini. It flows in both directions. So the word chitta nadi has been used because it is constantly flowing, changing constantly, like the river Ganga. The water constantly changes. It is an incessant flow, but it constantly changes. It flows even when we are asleep in the form of dreams. So that is all chitta. And chit is the one, the unchanging essence which witnesses this continuous change. So chitta, chit, Patanjali refers to as drashta, the seer, and chitta is the mind content.
If we are just talking over the Vedanta,
yes.
What is man, buddhi, chit, ahankara?
Yeah, there you have to be careful. There the word chitta has been used in a slightly different meaning because, see, even the word manas refers also to there are these four faculties. Manas, which is the mind, buddhi, which is the intellect, ahankara, which is ego, and chitta, which is the seat of memory. There it is the seat of memory amongst those four. And then the same word is also used for all four together. Like sometimes we use the word manas for the first one, and we use it also for all four. Similarly, the word chitta also refers to the fourth one, which is the seat of memory, and it also refers to all the four combined. That is like the example. Let me give you one last example. Prana refers to all the five pranas as well as the first amongst the five, isn't it? It refers to all the five pranas as well as prana, apana, vyana, samana, udana, the first one. In the same way, the word manas, and in the same way, the word chitta refers to all four as well as the fourth. So one has to be very careful not to confuse. Always the context has to decide which meaning has to be taken.
I would like to thank you for my help.
Thank you very much. Any other?
Question.
Yes, please pass the mic. Yes, sir.
Guruji,
Ji.
just like to share this.
Ji.
You have given various definitions of yoga.
Ji.
But one simple definition which comes to my mind is
Yes.
union of lower self with a higher self is yoga, and what is separating is ignorance.
Ignorance.
Maya
Yes.
or ignorance.
Yes. Yes.
So, in other words, is vanishing of little self in the light of higher self is yoga.
Sanyogo yoga ityukto jivatma paramatmano. That's, again, I was not touching, and my discourse was not at all exhaustive in nature, but I was not touching upon rather well-known and well-discussed meanings. But yes, that is a very important meaning. And as you beautifully pointed out, it is what Patanjali calls asmita, that limited sense of I, limited to this body, which separates the embodied consciousness from the omnipresent consciousness. And it is the capacity, the capability to see beyond that wall, beyond that created limitation, which is what yoga is also about. So, as beautifully, I think the Sanskrit verse for that is Sanyogo Yoga Ityukto, Jivatma, this consciousness which exists within the body, and Paramatma, which is this omnipresent consciousness, their union, their oneness. And as you beautifully pointed out, the separation lies in avidya, in ignorance, in forgetfulness, that's all. So to free oneself from that forgetfulness, I think Patanjali refers to avidya as the very foundation of the 5 fundamental causes of suffering. So I talked a little bit about suffering, but what is Patanjali's understanding of suffering is that all our suffering is rooted in ignorance itself. So his way, part of his way to get out of this suffering is to eradicate that avidya, that ignorance. But again, Jivatma, Paramatma, avidya, these are high terms, very detailed terms, which have to be understood in their properness. We cannot just throw them around. And what I usually see, because they are deep philosophical concepts, we just use them and then we apply our own understanding to these terms. We should go back to the teachings of the masters and see the meanings in which they have used it, and then try to understand. That requires a lot of effort. So thank you very much for sharing this beautiful meaning. Thank you. Yes.